Dude, I don't know about y'all, but I have been farming these exotic class items day and night, trying to find that perfect combination. Now, some combos are definitely more potent than others. Today, we're gonna be looking at a combination on Warlock. That was the first one I got, which I gotta say, I'm pretty proud of my Warlock RNG. This was a combination that we played with weeks ago at Bungie, but playing with it now after having more of an understanding of Prismatic really brings this combination to that next level. This combination being Spirit of Necrotic and Spirit of the Claw. Now, this is a combination that's usable not only in PvE, but also in PvP. Now, starting with Spirit of Necrotic. This reads, damaging targets with your melees, poisons them. Defeating a poison target spreads the condition. Now, this part comes from Necrotic Grips. The only listed bonus that we're missing here is the moderate airborne effectiveness that we get for our Weapons of Sorrow. Things like Thorn, Touch of Malice, Osteostriga, Necrochasm. And while these may not get enhanced AE with the spirits, their poison will still spread and synergize just like with normal Necrotic Grips. Now, the lack of AE is the only listed missing functionality. And I say listed for a reason, as a huge part of Necrotic Grips is the ramping up of poison damage. So let's go through that damage sequence. For base Necrotic Grips, once applied, the poison will linger for about 9.3 seconds and proc 19 times. Then taking that and looking at the damage on Carl, we can see that this deals 70,096 damage over those 9 seconds. Now that's Necrotic Grips, the exotic. Now let's look at Spirit of Necrotic. Here we still do burn damage over 9.3 seconds, but the damage here is stagnated at 1,545 damage per tick for a total of 29,355 damage on Carl here over 9 seconds. Now everything's the same amount of ticks, the same duration. What's different is that damage. This is a big loss in total damage, and this is exactly why we're going to be doing a video here soon going over the spirits versus the exotics, because these are things that are not included in the overall description. However, this is also why we're pairing it with Spirit of the Claw. This perk reads that you gain an additional melee charge. Now, a simple perk. Claws of Amkar has always been simple. It just gives you an extra melee. But on Prismatic, it's perfect. Now, one of the main things that's missing here is, of course, the addition of intrinsic heavy-handed. Bungie added this to the base exotic at the beginning of the final shape, and this would spawn in an orb of power on those power melee kills. You don't have that intrinsically. That's all right, though. You can literally just add it as a mod. The important part is the additional melee, which synergizes beautifully with Spirit of Necrotic, as well as our prismatic aspects and melees. Now, let's get on to the breakdown. We highly recommend you use this with Arcane Needle. Not only do you get 3 melee charges, which goes up to 4 with Spirit of the Claw, it also allows you to apply poison damage from a safe distance, and it gives you Unraveling, adding even more damage. And the aspect we're most excited to pair with this is surprisingly Lightning Search. This is what you've been seeing in the background gameplay. Its ad clear is pretty potent, but adding these 2 perks makes it much more powerful. Now, before turning our focus to the bread and butter of this exotic combo, I want to mention that Spirit of Necrotic and Spirit of the Claw works in our Song of Flame super. That's right, guys. You get 2 melee charges that apply poison, and with the inherent ability Regeneration, you can honestly just spam your snap without any downtime. Now, returning to the main uses, though, of this combo. Just getting some damage numbers out of the way. Here at Carl, our Arcane Needles dealing 24,310 damage. Now, when paired with Necrotic, that burn damage will actually proc the Unraveling Explosion from Unravel, which allows the total damage on Carl to be 92,440. This is with the burn and Unravel damage added. Now, looking at Lightning Search, we hit Carl here for a total of 44,539. Now, this will apply jolt to enemies that are hit with this Lightning Search. And just like the Unravel from Arcane Needle, the burn damage from Necrotic will proc the jolt effect, which will hit each time for 5,311 damage, and then chain lightning to any nearby enemies. Now, this truly allows you to clear entire groups of enemies with a single Lightning Search. And if it's a beefier target, Necrotic's poison will linger, and it will continue to proc jolts and kill any enemies that weren't already dead. And then, of course, when they die, they spread even more poison damage, and thus continuing the cycle. So while the single target damage output isn't anything to write home about, the ability to clear wave after wave of enemies is very good. And this is even more true when we activate Transcendence, as we'll have 4 melees with ramped up regeneration, which pretty much means infinite. Like, you're literally just using these things back to back as quickly as you could possibly use them. Now, while we talk about Transcendence, we should also talk about the artifact. I've already explained that this combination isn't made for massive single target damage, but we do have a couple artifact mods that can further enhance our damage, making it even easier to deal with those big group of enemies. Those two mods, of course, being Transference and Shield Crush. We've talked about this one a lot, but if you look at Transference, it reads that you gain increased grenade and melee damage while Transcendent, and Weapon Final Blows while Transcendent refund light and dark energy after Transcendent ends. Now looking at Arcane Needle, this goes up to 26,741 damage, which is a 10% increase over base. Lightning Surge goes up to 48,462 damage, which is about a 9% increase over base. But one thing to note is that Transference does not buff our jolt damage, as it's still hitting for 5,311. Now one thing we did notice, however, was that Transference seems to be buffing the damage caused from Unravel. As you can see here at Coral, each severing burst from Unravel is hitting for 2,286 damage rather than the 2,078 that we saw earlier. Now the poison damage from Necrotic remains unchanged at 1,545 per tick. Now looking at the Shield Crush, this reads, while you have Woven Mail, Frost Armor, or a Void Overshield, your melees recharge faster and they deal increased damage. Now both effects that buff our melees are desirable. We get our melee back 20% faster and we deal more damage. Taking a look at Arcane Needle, our damage jumps to 30,388, which is a 25% increase over our base. Now interestingly enough, unlike what we saw with Transference, the damage from Unravel remains unchanged. Now as for our Lightning Surge, our damage increases to 54,346, which is a 22% increase over base. And as we saw previously, our jolt remains the same. Now, with both Shield Crush and Transference combined, our damage with Arcane Needle increases to 33,427, which is a 37.5% increase over base. And looking at our Lightning Surge, this is actually a 33% increase at 59,249. Now, if you're wondering why the percentages here are slightly different, that's due to the jolt not increasing in damage. Now, another artifact mod I would highly recommend is Galvanic Armor. This reads, while you have an arc or prismatic subclass equipped, incoming damage is reduced while amplified. Now, you're going to be amplified pretty much all the time since you're using Lightning Surge. Literally just landing these final blows with arc damage will make you amplified. Now, this is a 30% reduction to your damage taken. It's huge, guys. Take full advantage of these artifact mods. And that's one thing to note. It's not necessarily that these mods are going to make you a DPS machine. That's not what this build was meant for. What it does add is more ability spam, more damage to those base abilities, and more survivability, which is exactly what you're going to need with this build, considering you are playing pretty close quarters to your enemies. Now, you compare this build with any other aspect. We've got Lightning Surge, but what's the best thing to go with it? Well, guys, I actually settled on Feed the Void, and that's because on Prismatic, this allows any ability to trigger Devour. So your Lightning Surges, your Arcane Needles, or even your grenades, these will all trigger Devour for 10 seconds. No lie, this is nuts. It's not locked to Void. It's any ability. And any kills, either weapons or ability kills, will give you HP back. It'll also increase grenade regeneration. I rely on Devour so much. Even outside of this class, I use Devour all the time on things like my Titan, which is why Buried Bloodline is one of my most used exotics in the game. But here, you're getting it for free. And you're getting it for free with everything in this kit. Now, moving on to some of the fragments that I would recommend. You can go with Facet of Dawn, which reads power melee hits against targets makes you radiant. Power melee final blows makes your nearby allies radiant. Now, this works in perfect combination with our class item. As we clear out those enemies, you'll be providing radiant for yourself and for your allies. Facet of Balance is also another good choice, as rapidly defeating targets with light damage grants you melee energy, which is perfect here. And rapidly defeating targets with darkness damage grants grenade energy. This is a perfect loop, though, for Lightning Surge itself. Then we have Facet of Protection. It reads, while surrounded by combatants, you are more resistant to incoming damage. While Transcendent, this effect is increased. Now again, we have an artifact mod already giving us that 30% damage resist. But considering this is such a melee heavy base build, and you're going to be in such close proximity of your enemies, I wouldn't turn down anything that can help out with that survivability. Now finally, if you're going to make use of Shield Crush, Facet of Purpose is a great choice. Picking up an Orb of Power grants either Amplified, Restoration, Frost Armor, Woven Mail, or Overshield based on the damage type of your equipped super. Now this does kind of limit your options for supers, either Needle Storm, Nova Bomb, or Shadebinder. But as mentioned before, your Lightning Surge will be hitting about 22% harder than your base. Now I also want to take a look at this inside of PvP. Again, a lot of the focus here has been on PvE, but inside of PvP, it pretty much works identical to base Necrotic grips, as in the Spirit of Necrotic doesn't have as steep of a damage fall off as base Necrotic. Now you can still pair this with any Weapons of Sorrow, the most popular probably being Thorn, and have the same effects as you would normally. In terms of Lightning Surge, there's nothing that it really does to secure the kill at any resilience, but the ability to close the gap on your targets, especially groups of targets, guys, Lightning Surge Surge has always been a solid one. I think the thing that really carries this build the most is, of course, Claws. Spirit of the Claws, allowing you to have more melees with Arcane Needle, allows for that back-to-back Lightning Surge over and over. What's even nastier is inside of PvP pairing this with Song of Flame. And really, the combo that I really liked here was Song of Flame, Thorn, and just plain aggressive with the shotgun. Now, a year ago, we used to use Dead Messenger with Lightning Surge. You can't quite get the one-hit kill off with that, but really the best way to use Lightning Surge these days is literally run up, get a couple shots off on an enemy, and then when they try to dip behind cover, Lightning Surge right into that cubby or wherever they may be to get the easy cleanup. All in all, guys, this is a very unique combination for Warlocks. When was the last time you sat down and used Lightning Surge in PvE? Now you have the ability to pair it with the Weapon of Sorrows to spread that poison damage even more. And although it may not be as potent as base Necrotic, you'll be able to sprinkle in Lightning Surge attacks over and over. And this is definitely something that my PvP players will be able to take full advantage of. Well, fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching. And as always,
slap that like button like your mama told you right.